First one go well?
Yeah, 7:30. It was good. So, lady in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
So all around the world. All around the world.
Mm-hmm. International babe.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
I can't wait to see what you do with the these particular skills as well. The eye accessing cues and representational systems we're about to do, because I'm hoping it will enhance what you already do, and then maybe also make it more interesting when you've got somebody in front of you, because it can be quite, excuse the pun, an eye opener, these things. Carry on anyway, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I'm also finding that I'm doing a lot of things and I'm understanding them. So I do a lot of things in hypno I've been doing since I began my energy work. I just didn't know why I was doing them. So it's giving me that kind of a deeper understanding of my gifts, I guess.
Yeah, good, great. Because I recognise when I was looking at the notes to prepare that that first step in rapport build of hypnotherapy is kind of a huge part of NLP. And I think that's why I said so much about it when we were going through the 10 steps. Because it's so important. If you don't have rapport, there's hardly any point carrying on. Some good will get through, of course it will, but it might be more tricky. Well, also, there's a huge amount of NLP in that rapport build.
Yes.
So what did you get out of what you know already and what you've read, Teresa?
Well, I really think we just got into it. The pages that I read are just getting into it. The eye contact thing is interesting. The up and away. I wasn't able to do the exercise in the book, the practice though. I didn't have anybody to do it with.
Well, this is a really interesting point. That the way I learned was because people didn't stay still enough or didn't want to talk to me enough or whatever. So I watched interviews.
Oh, yeah.
And particularly, we had a guy over here called Michael Parkinson who was very good at interviewing people, very inoffensive type of guy, but he always got to the truth. He put people at ease so that these superstars would turn around and say, I don't know why I told you that. It's like I just thought it was you and me here, and then I realised there's 6 million viewers, you know. He had a very good way of putting people at ease, and they would say things that they wouldn't normally say in interviews. So not acting, of course, because acting is somewhat different. The actor wants to portray an emotion and engage a certain state. We talk about state-dependent behaviour. An actor within, well, a film, an hour and a half, well, let's say The Martian. Have you both seen The Martian with Matt Damon? When it's a film, regardless of what film it is, when it's a film where there's only a couple of characters, so a great deal of the footage, if you like, is one character, or there's a lot of close-up, it's a lot of intensity. We don't really know why we enjoy the film so much or why we engage with that character. And great actors and actresses, and particularly method actors, they kind of don't come out of character after the shot's taken, and they might live for a couple of months as their character and embody the character so that they can portray it, because they're trying to portray a different character to their own persona. When somebody's acting, I'm told that the best actors don't act, they be. They become the character, they embody the character. But certainly soap operas are the worst things to watch when you're trying to study this stuff. But honest interviews, when somebody is giving a personal account, they're the best, because there'll be a close-up of the person's face as the answer's coming, and the cameraman is poised and ready to capture the moment where that question is asked. That question that maybe the agent said, don't you dare ask them this question. Jeremy Paxman's another one that we used to have here. When somebody is asked a question and they're slightly uncomfortable, and so they have to process more deeply. Children, particularly young children, when you ask them a particular question that they didn't want to answer, but because they're a child and you're more powerful than them and they can't run away, whatever situation a parent has cornered them in, or a teacher, they'll actually start moving their body into the areas that I'm about to tell you about. The brain is wired in such a way that the visual cortex is linked to thoughts, because as we said yesterday, thoughts are pictures. We then give linguistics to those thoughts. We used to think before we had language, and as we learnt language, we put words to those thoughts. But the international language of human beings is micro expressions and macro expressions and body language, which it's now scientifically proven is the same with somebody in Hollywood and somebody in Papua New Guinea who's never seen their reflection in a mirror. So an emotional state experienced by the unconscious mind will fire off certain muscles in the face. And so for a fleeting moment, every single human being on the planet, even blind athletes, because that's all being studied, will give exactly the same expression. According to culture, we will then what's called squelch the expression, because we often don't want the other person to know what we're truly thinking, particularly when we're striving to be polite. And in Japan, it's when you slow down footage of Japanese businessmen interacting with each other, you'll see a fleeting, very fleeting, true expression of disgust or anger, but because their culture is so very, very polite and respectful, etc., it is squelched by a smile. But we do it in Western culture as well. Very often we will have, we sense an expression appearing on our face and we smile quickly. It kind of wipes the slate clean, but you become skilled in being able to spot them. But that's kind of an add-on. This course adds on lots of information to the foundation course. The foundation, the NLP side of this rapport building, is to first of all, yes, look at the face and the expression, but mostly look where the eyes are going, because the eyes, of course, are linked to the visual cortex. The visual cortex is where we form pictures and thoughts. So it's much easier to demonstrate this than to talk about it, because when you see it demonstrated, as we did yesterday with you, Teresa, as it's demonstrated, as the person just does it easily, ordinarily and naturally, then you think, oh, I get it now. So to simplify things, people generally look up when they're visualizing and look down when they're feeling and having inner dialogue with themselves. So if you think about people in your experience, but also people that you know you've seen being interviewed, or even people in certain roles, actors and actresses in your favourite films, they have the actors and actresses have another role to give. And remember, the director is telling them what to do with their eyes. If it says in the script that they've said something and they regret it, or they've said something and now they're having some inner dialogue about what they've just said, you would see them looking down to the one side and the other. They're having a thought, and then they're having a word with themselves, as to whether or not to tell you what that thought is, or they're thinking about something they've seen, and then they're editing it somewhat, constructing it into, should I actually tell them about that, or should I edit the truth a little bit? So one side is said to be remembered, and the other side is said to be constructed. And nowhere am I saying the word lie, by the way. Constructed is a construction and an addition of creativity, either because we don't fully accept what we're saying ourselves or thinking ourselves, or we have trouble remembering what the colour of our front door is. So we look up and we're looking for our front door, and then we're thinking about what the colour is. No, it's not brown, is it? That was the other house. So you'll see people that visualise, or anybody that's thinking and persuaded to think in a visual way will look up, and they'll look to the one side and they usually look up to the other, and it's the side that they look to first and last that's the key. So we just experiment with that for a moment. Who would like to volunteer? Well, it's me then. Okay, can you see my face?
No, I just had a quick question before we do this.
Okay, yes.
When you watch me channel, which way do I do it? Do I visualize it or do I go within?
You are dead ahead, because the information is there, just coming out. I don't think you're processing in that way that I've just described, or at least I don't notice it.
Okay, cool. So we'll play. I can't do it now because I got it, but I'm just curious which way I do it, because it comes in.
Sorry to interrupt you. I volunteered, but I'd put my microphone on mute, so I did actually volunteer before you volunteered yourself. But then I realised when you said, "Oh, it's just me," then that I actually had my microphone on mute, so I apologise. I said I'm good to go.
Over to you then, Nick. Give us
your
space. Get a bit closer to your camera.
How close do you want me to get?
Oh my God!
Awesome.
Is that a little bit too close?
I hope you're recording that. That's lovely.
Right.
Look into my eyes. No, not my eyes.
This is going to be a bit awkward, so I'm going to put it on gallery view so that we can all see each other, because we want to be totally, and this is what you do with your client, you are totally and utterly obsessed now with this face of Nick, right? So
ooh, that's a bit harsh. Don't get obsessed with my face.
Don't feel self-conscious at all.
It's not that worth getting obsessed over, to be fair.
Nothing else in the world exists except Nick's face, okay? So I'm going to say, hey Nick, hello.
Hey, hello.
What does your car look like? What colour is it?
My car it's a darky grey Skoda, and it's kind of a GP type size.
Okay. What about the interior?
Oh, now you're asking. I think it's like a charcoal dark grey.
Okay. And then, have you got a doorbell in the place you're living in at the moment? What's it sound like if you have? Or do people?
I have a doorbell, but it doesn't work.
Oh, it doesn't work.
No. So I have the bell on the outside, but I don't know where the inside chimer is, for example.
So is it one of those electronic ones, or the old battery chime ones? Sorry, the
Not got a Scooby-Doo. I think it's one of these, you know, the ones where you have the button on the outside, and then inside somewhere you have the receiver.
So it's one of these newfangled electronic ones that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You'll find the device, the receiver, at some point. Usually when you're moving out, you'll find, oh, that's where that is then.
Well, I think it was, obviously we've moved into rented accommodation, so whoever lived here before took I think they took their bell, but they didn't take the actual button that goes with it.
So when you said a fraction of a moment ago, well, of course, when we moved in, were you making a picture of yourself moving in? When you said the words, of course, when we were moving in.
I think I pictured an empty house.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce your wife's surname?
Properly, or how do I pronounce it?
Both. How about
I
that?
think there might be a slight difference in those two answers, but I'll tell you how I pronounce it. It's Toker.
Now, Teresa, did you see just before he answered? Oh, I'm not going to be able to do it, I don't think. His eyeballs were straight ahead, though they just kind of wobbled from side to side when he talked about the wife's name. And so don't expect people to go, well, I think it's pronounced this. Well, when the eyes go to the side, that's called auditory remembered and auditory constructed. So the reason why I've asked things in that particular way is that there's a lot of visualization, and particularly when you want to practice this, ask somebody something that would be on the tip of their tongue. Maybe they know the colour of their front door or whatever, but something about the car was very easily accessed by Nick. The exterior of the car and the shape, etc. And then he even said, bless him, when I said, what about the interior? Oh, now you're asking. So he had to go over to construct as well as remember. So one side, and I always use the term right remembered, so that we know it's usually, emphasis on the usually, it's usually the right hand side of the person as you're looking on. This gets people very confused.
Am I right?
You're right as you're looking at the person. Okay? So forget about it. I see people, I can see you doing it already. People, when you first say this, oh, I wonder what people think about me then. Is that my left then? Is that their right? And they get all kinds of, Think about you reading other people at the moment.
So as I'm looking now, if I don't know how this video works with things being back to front, Teresa.
Yes, I don't know.
So if I'm like this, if I look up here,
yes,
is this your right or your left?
Our right.
Okay,
right.
Brilliant. So when I remembered, because I pictured the car in my head, I actually visualized the car downstairs because I'm on a first floor. So when I think about my car, I do this.
Oh, is that so your left? Is that your?
It's my left.
Yes.
But as you look at me, it's your right.
That's
so
it.
It's right remembered. Is that what you said,
That's
Jennie?
exactly
Is that what you meant?
it. Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Right remembered. Though I am told, though it varies, that if the person is left-handed, then they are reversed in that. So don't go.
Oh, I'll have to test Tommy.
Okay.
This is left-handed. I'll let you know.
But this is so interesting. It really is, because you cannot not do it. This is the way our brains are wired. You cannot not do it. And people that look at you all the time as you're talking and never deviate, they are very, very practiced liars.
Oh, oops. I do it all the time.
You think you do. You think you do, but your eyeballs will do something like this. So it's going to get quite close, right? So you think you're looking straight ahead, but then you'll kind of just flick and back.
Oh, okay.
You just dart. I mean, I'm exaggerating it, but when Nick was doing the doorbell thing, no one particularly with his wife's surname, he just kind of, I don't know if I can do it. He just did a kind of a wobble to the side, not even a kind of look to the side, but look more like a.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's kind of you're hearing things when you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're accessing your audio part of your brain. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, so you're either seeing things written and repeating them in your head, like somebody's surname, and you're reading it, but it's auditory because you're saying it in your own head,
Right.
or you're remembering a sound, or if you ask somebody about their favourite song or to sing along to some lyrics, quite often you'll see them go to the side. The side is more unusual. It's more, it's easier for me to say when people look up, they're visualising. If people looking down, they're thinking, as in they're thinking about, they're accessing their feelings and they're talking to themselves. You know Clint Eastwood, don't you? Both of you, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, when Clint Eastwood was interviewed, in every interview I've seen him interviewed in, he's very measured. And particularly as he's got older, he's very careful, he's very gentlemanly, and he's quite slow in his delivery, and he's utterly charming. But he will pause and he will look and he will sit. And if he's asked a question in an interview, and you'll be watching these later, when he's asked a question, he'll go, well, I'm not really sure how I should answer that. That's a very interesting question. And then he'll deliver his response. He's one of these people that will access his feelings and have a word with himself before he delivers his answer. So he'll look down to one side, down to the other side, and then he might flick up and then deliver the answer. When he's acting, particularly in his spaghetti westerns, he's very much looking at the camera and chewing tobacco or got a cigar in his mouth, and his face hardly does anything because he's squinting in the sun in his younger days. Michael Caine is very, very practiced in looking direct to camera, and even just an eyelid twitch means the world to Michael Caine. Michael Caine, Michael Caine, Teresa? Yeah. In his early days, his first film was Zulu. Film Zulu? Yeah. And it was very interesting, a slight digression, but it's all about eyes, you see. And I can tell you why it's interesting to know about Michael Caine's eyes. Michael Caine is a very, very blonde man, and his eyelashes were blonde. And so for the film, they dyed his eyelashes because it was all in bright sunlight, because it's all about warriors and Zulus, of course. And he played, and they joke about it now, Stanley Baker played a kind of working man in the army, and Michael Caine played the officer. And really, their natural characters were the other way around. But the director decided to stretch them as actors. So Michael Caine, Cockney guy, had to play the officer. But he really, really, really wanted the role. So in his biography, they wouldn't have him to begin with because he was fair and his eyes wouldn't tolerate bright sunlight. And he squinted so much, he couldn't wear, obviously, sunglasses in that sort of a film. And they couldn't use him because he'd be squinting so much to protect his eyes. Now, anybody that's ever used contact lenses has overcome their unconscious response to not poke themselves in the eye. You ever worn contact lenses, either of you? Can you imagine doing so?
Can't do it.
So already you know that you wouldn't do it.
Right.
But I can touch my eyeball. There you go. It's very uncomfortable, but I could do it. I can poke myself in the eye now, but normally people can't, because your unconscious mind, just like pulling your hand away, would close your eye just as you're about to touch your eyeball.
Right.
The conversations I had, and everybody that has worn contact lenses would say, look, I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not poking myself in the eye. And as soon as the things would come to the, come to the eyeball, the eye would close. Michael Caine overcame his ordinary, natural, unconscious impulses to close his eyes in bright sunlight. And he did it by days and days and weeks of staring at the sun with his eyes streaming.
Wow.
And it made him very, very able to be in control of how his eyes behaved. And so for him to be able to portray a character, if he's told by the director that when you're feeling a certain thing, you should be looking down to the right. And when you're having a word with yourself, you should be looking down to the left. And if you're feeling nervous, you should just flick your eyes to the one side and then back again. He does master classes where the camera is just his face. So all this knowledge has been known for a long time, but you with your client, when you're asking them a question, you can ask them their name, you can ask them something that's innocuous, that doesn't mean anything too sinister. But when you ask them the question that's related to why they came, when you ask them that question, you'll notice that their eyes will go exactly in the direction you would expect. So that client that you had this morning, Teresa, probably did a bit of small talk first, but then when you go for the jugular, excuse me, you're probably watching them like a hawk and picking up their responses. When the person looks down, usually they're accessing their feelings and then if they're going to the other side, they're having a word with themselves. When they're looking up, they're frantically, if it's flicking from one side to the other, they're frantically looking at pictures or referring to visual memories and then either editing them or constructing something because they can't quite remember. So I can't put over to you enough that on these charts, when you see on the left-hand side, it will say visual constructed, auditory constructed. It means, and the people interpret that as lying. God, they must be lying to me. They're looking to them. No, what it means is they can't quite remember, but you're demanding an answer, so they're going to have to make it up. They're going to have to use their imagination.
And that's my left or their left?
Right remembered for you.
Right.
Usually.
And then left is constructed?
Yes. So you, Teresa, now can ask our lovely volunteer, Nick, some questions. You can either use them from the book,
bring the camera back.
or just ask him some questions that you think you can make him look up, and you think you could make him look down by accessing feelings.
Okay.
And let's see where his eyeballs go.
Hopefully inside my head. Hopefully.
Okay. So recall the sound of your grandmother's voice.
Wow. Can't do it. She passed away about 15 years ago, and it's been that long.
But thank you. I think
Okay.
you've done enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that was good though, right? We got the auditory,
Yeah.
so he went across, and you were trying to construct it, but you couldn't. So then you went over here to try to remember it, but you couldn't. So you went back to try to construct it.
Well, I think in the end, I ended up on looking to my left, which is your right, remembered, because I remembered she had an accent, and she used to call me Nicky. Nicholas, but then I remembered that she called me Nicky, and then I could kind of repeat that back in what I believed, because I'd constructed what I believed was her voice. So I kind of got there in the end, but it took me a lot of creation to get there. Yeah, processing it.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Am I supposed
So
to?
one thing I like about this, one of the big things I like about this technique is you can see people's where the process their mind is going through to get to the result of what they tell you, and it can shed so much light on what they're really thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what the process they're going through, and it just helps you understand your client a lot deeper than just a surface, what you see is what you get type thing.
I presume that Teresa is a very brave lady, particularly with clients, and so she watches them like a hawk. But most people in ordinary conversation, particularly when it gets to something that's emotional, if it's friends, that you might ask a question and then look away, almost out of respect. Or how about another cup of tea? You've asked a question, you're waiting for the answer, but you don't really want to look at them for any little nuance. Though in therapy, that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
It's quite right. When you've asked the question, observe as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. It's interesting because I guarantee I do this already.
Yes.
But I'm just, again, it's putting those words to what I'm actually doing.
Anything else you want to ask Nick whilst you've got his face?
Shall I get closer?
I don't know what questions to ask. Is it a short thing? Like, do I just ask, like, how much do you love your wife?
Well, you could say
Infinite.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So
There
I'll
is no.
in the middle.
You could say, imagine your wife dressed as she is today. Imagine her now. Make a picture of her in your head, right?
Yeah, got it.
Now, imagine her in a 101 Dalmatians onesie.
Oh, this is a bad subject. This is a really bad
So
subject.
he's felt it before. You can see he's gone down. This is not the first time they've done that.
Can we pick a different subject? Because this could get embarrassing.
Imagine.
How about I found that to gauge my clients, what I found really valuable was to ask them how they talk me through their journey that they traveled to get here.
It's not going to work today, Nick, is it?
No, it is. If I say to you, I'm going to tell you about the last journey I took in the car.
Oh, the last journey, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would. It was. Oh, when was it now? Bloody hell! I think it was last Saturday. So Natalie and I decided to go for a drive just because we were bored, and we drove to Nottingham. So we left here, and then we travelled out past. We travelled out past Asda, and on the A52, and we went down a lot of sort of A roads over quite a few roundabouts, out into the country a bit until we reached. It wasn't the A1. It was the A463, I think it was. And then when we got onto the A463, we ended up on the M1 for a little while, and then we travelled on and on the M1 there was obviously a motorway here, so we have lots of blue signs with white writing on a motorway. They're very colour coded as to where you are. A roads are green with, I think it's yellow writing, I think, or is it white? I can't remember. So you can see what's happening. I'm dropping down. I'm going across. Does that make sense? So you're seeing.
Can I ask you a question though? When you close your eyes and I ask you to say, picture your bedroom.
To what? Sorry.
Picture your bedroom.
Picture my bedroom.
Can you see it, or do you just know where your bed is?
No, I can visualize the bedroom. Our staircase goes up into the bedroom, so as you get to the top of the staircase, you get a full overview of the bedroom.
So you can actually see it?
Yeah.
That's what REM sleep is all about.
No, I wanted to test because he's so visual. I think the eye movement would be different if you were talking to somebody who was kinesthetic, who felt things, as opposed to people that see things.
Well, this is where it becomes very, very interesting indeed. We're going to now do a calibration exercise. I want you to ask, and you can answer to begin with. I want you to ask Nick, so we'll keep the wife out of it, but ask Nick about something he really, really likes, approves of, enjoys, adores. Ask him about some enjoyable experience and calibrate. I'm not going to tell you how. Calibrate everything about Nick that makes you realise that he likes what he's talking about. Okay? It's an interesting exercise.
Okay. Tell me about your favorite
Could be
food.
food or music.
Something you adore. What's your favorite?
Oh, my favorite food.
Or end of life
So
food.
my wife makes the meanest, most amazing Caesar salad. So it's not just obviously lettuce. We don't use croutons because I think we're both a little bit gluten intolerant. But she makes the most amazing Caesar salad because we put chicken in it. We put smoky bacon, like big chunks of smoky bacon, not just little slices of rashers. You know, it's almost off a joint. And then it's got the sauce in there. It's got crispy, crunchy. We've got celery chopped up. We've got tomatoes. We've got, what else have we got? Geez, so much. Cucumber. Yeah, and it's